Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and earth were joined together as one unit of creation before we clove them asunder? We made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe? Before there can be a judgment, a clear warning must be given. The judgment warning in both Quran and Bible is upon us. The messenger of the warning has come and gone. Now the judge is about to take his seat. The Ancient of Days, as warned in both Injil and Quran, you will be judged according to what's in the books. What books? The Injil, for one. The judgment is about exclusion by definition, not inclusion. The Injil has been opened, the seals broken, yet there are those who dispute that without knowledge. I have provided the key and how to use it. The fools and ignorant refuse to check out to see if it is correct. What else would you call them? Perhaps disbelievers? If you provide directions and a map, yet the person disputes/disagrees with you and refuses to even look at the map, what would you call that? It is easy, very easy, to prove or disprove what I am saying/revealing. Just use the key. I have provided the key, how to use it in clear examples. So why do they dispute in ignorance? That's what the Quran calls fools. People who dispute without knowledge, which means they are stupid and choose to be stupid when they could easily verify the truth of it by just checking. Then they could reject or accept either way based on knowledge. But they chose to be fools, dispute without knowledge. There is nothing mysterious, nefarious, nor hidden about what I'm teaching, saying, revealing. I have revealed the source openly, the method and examples of my conclusions. So everyone is without excuse. The last thing you want is to appear before the judge and be asked, what was wrong with what I said? And your only answer is no answer at all, when you could have easily checked to verify. What could be clearer? There are two seeds, the devil's and the angel's. Yet there are the devil's seed mixed in with the angel's seed. They resemble the angels, but ain't angels. They are devils or demons masquerading as angels. The real niggers. They are left to grow together until the Son of Man / Ancient of Days arrive and calls them out. You act according to your nature when unrestrained to do so. The mystery of Babylon is that you would, at its end, be unrestrained, so that everything is acting out their natures. If you are acting like a nigger / demon, then you are a nigger / demon. During the 400 years of obliteration called slavery, your actions were restrained, so your true nature was suppressed. Now that the pressure of restraint has been lifted, your true nature emerges. It was during the 400 years of restraint that the devil sowed his seed among us. Under restraint, there was no way to distinguish between his seed and ours. But now, freedom, freedom, freedom to express yourself, be yourself, do your thing. As the messenger said, all flaws will be made manifest. Does anyone read the scriptures, study the scriptures? The scriptures are the basis and underpinning of the message of all the prophets. It is the reason why the NOI exists. How can a bird fly without wings? The scriptures are the wings of the NOI. No wonder the NOI is flailing around, stumbling around. No matter what they tell you, the NOI is drying up, failing. It's being consumed as the prophecy states, quote, whom the Lord will consume with his mouth and destroy upon his bright appearing, end quote. The Son of Man is not here to convert anyone. He's here to separate the niggers / devils / ungrateful children, all who offend, from the righteous. Read if you dare. Demons are the scripture's equivalent of niggers, black-faced Caucasians, the chaff mingled in with the wheat. If you are a demon, he wants you to remain a demon. Please let me disabuse you of thinking that he came to save everyone. Better read again. The doing unrighteously, let him do unrighteously yet, and the filthy, let him be made filthy yet, and the righteousness, let him do yet, and they that are holy, let them be made holy yet. End quote. Does that sound like he wants to convert you, convince you of anything? You missed the point. The entire point of this 6,000-year exercise is to remove or separate out the rebellious brown germ. That's the mystery of Babylon. America was designed for that very purpose. You put gold in a furnace of affliction to purify, to separate out all the impurities. If you are going to mix them back in, then what is the point? Now, every demon, nigger, fag, liar, thief is proudly manifesting themselves for all to see. Freedom, 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 free America. Ha, ha, ha. Freedom to expose who you really are. Just keep doing your thing. The scriptures, which include the Quran and all books of the Bible, were written 16,000 years ago. At that time, all the events found in them were yet future history, if you will. There was no Yaqub, none of Yaqub's creation, no prophets, no Moses, no Muhammad, no Isa, no Jesus. One must first orient the scriptures to the reality time period they belong to before any attempts are made to decipher, understand them. The master stroke of Satan, the Jews, false Israel, was to reorientate the scriptures to make the past future and the future past. In other words, make north south and east west, such that the true Israel would be lost even though they have a clear and perfect map. Just the compass is pointing in the wrong direction. None of the events the Jews, declare as past history are past. There was no biblical Moses, no biblical Aaron, no biblical Jesus, no biblical Michael, no biblical Son of Man, no biblical Israel, no biblical seed of Abraham in bondage, etc., etc. No, none of it. There is absolutely no proof that any of those things ever occurred, not even the so-called great flood of Noah. Not one bit of evidence. The archaeologists have been digging around in the deserts of and around Egypt for hundreds of years, have found not one shred of evidence that the so-called Exodus ever occurred. Not one shred. Not one shred of evidence that there was ever any people in bondage in Egypt for 1 year, forget about 400 years. The fact is, all those things are happening right now, before your very eyes. But you have been blinded by Satan, devils, demons, including the quote mouth unquote, called the son of perdition, who has taught you to close your eyes, just in case you might get a glimpse of the truth. The scripture is clear once you open your eyes and get your compass oriented and straight. Elijah would come for 40 years with truth. He would be followed by 40 years of darkness, lies, deception from every perch, cave, elevated place, even the temple of Elijah itself. Aaron, the quote anointed unquote, would turn hypocrite, turned by Satan. Aaron would deceive the people, turn their hearts back to Egypt, humiliate the believers before and in sight of the enemies with discredited religions and philosophies such as Sunnism, golden calf, and Scientology, Oiting, etc. He made himself an enemy to the NOI, as we are told. Quote, he would make war with the saints /NOI and overcome them, end quote, with his mouth, which is why he is called the quote in mouth, end quote, in both Daniel and the angel. Recently, I watched Brother Wesley debate a fool called Natural Tahuti. Don't know why he would lower himself to that level. It's like barking back at dogs. I don't debate. I tell the truth. Let the fools and foolish debate over it. There seems to be some issue about the messenger saying Prophet Muhammad was a white man. I don't see why Brother Wesley, whose sincerity I respect, would have any difficulty explaining that. The angel says Prophet Muhammad as well as Prophet Isa were black Africans. But even if he was a white man, so Farah is a white man. We are referring to complexion, not nature. The lessons qualify the definition of being white. Quote, the Caucasian white man is the devil, end quote. It's the seed that defines who you are, not the complexion. An error that will be addressed very soon, the chaff and the wheat. The Iranians are white, but they ain't, quote, Caucasian, end quote, white. Caucasians will never accept Islam. The core of stars are the hottest, most pressurized places in the universe. Heat and pressure, they are the same thing. Heat in an enclosed space is pressure. Temperature is the measure of how fast atoms are moving. So, in the core of stars, you have intense pressure, intense fire, and very intense motion, the speed of atoms. The bigger the star, the greater the core pressure, the hotter the core fire, the faster the core atoms. At the beginning of each cycle of creation, which lasts 152 trillion years, 76 trillion for the expansion and 76 for the contraction, the universe and Earth are one, a superstar with the Earth its core. Then comes the expansion, called the Big Bang by the KV. The Quran confirms this. The Quran is not a religious book. It is a science book, as is the Bible. They were both written in prose, but are mathematical. Quote, you reap what you sow, end quote, is the prose equivalent of, quote, every action has an opposite or equal reaction, end quote. The most fundamental principle in the universe. They hold many scientific secrets for the wise and diligent seekers. There are 5 laws of pressure that govern the universe. Iblis reveals many secrets. He stated that he was created before Adam of intense fire. Intense fire is pressure. The Quran uses stories, characters, all part of its allegorical language to express fundamental scientific and mathematical principles. You have to know science and mathematics to tease them out. It's all mathematics. The character Iblis is full of mathematical knowledge. Consider what he is saying. He was made of intensely hot fire, but we are told that everything living was made of water. How is that reconciled? The Quran reveals that, quote, we, end quote, made everything living from water. Quote, do not those who disbelieve see that the heavens and earth were closed up? We rent them and made from water everything living. Will they not then believe? End quote. So if, quote, we, end quote, made everything living from water, then what were we before we did that? Iblis is surely a living creature, but he was made of intensely hot fire. What is water? Water is H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, both fire. Hydrogen is fire and so is oxygen. All stars are mostly composed of hydrogen. It takes very large stars to forge/fuse oxygen. Atoms don't evolve. They are forged/fused together by the intense pressure in the core of stars. Evolution is false science, if science at all. There is nothing in the universe that evolves. It falls in the category of fourth dimensions, time machines, string theory, and multiverse or multi-universe theory, along with the Area 51 stuff. It's a philosophy designed to give, quote, a scientific foundation, end quote, to white superiority, which by the rules of evolution, everything gets turned on its head. The last is the best. The first is the worst. Growth and evolution are two distinctly different things. Growth is the expansion or replication of elementary properties / variables / components that already exist. Evolving is to create or add elementary properties / variables that don't yet exist. DNA has all the information of the ultimate structure already built in. There is nothing in this universe that evolves. Nothing. And they cannot present any actual proof / evidence of anything that has evolved. Atoms don't evolve. They are forged / fused. The idea that something, anything, can or could spontaneously or otherwise develop an elementary trait that wasn't already inherent within its nature is preposterous. They can't even develop any mathematical language to support such an idea. Derivatives remove variables or traits. Integration cannot add variables. They cannot even prove evolution mathematically. The archaeological record is correct, but the analysis is backwards, in most cases purposely backwards. Caucasians are a derivative of the original people. Genetics teach us that the derivative cannot reproduce that which it is a derivative of. Whites cannot produce blacks. Even in calculus, you cannot recover the original by reversing the process of taking the derivative called integration when there are multiple variables involved. Sociologists know that most children will rise to expectations as a desire for acceptance, approval, and peer pressure. The Jews knew that, so they used religion to set their standard, to wit, quote, they are God's chosen people, end quote. So they have to and do excel to prove it. The white people chose science as their standard, thus evolution. If evolution is true, then they are superior to all, and even more, the blacks are reduced to animals who have stopped evolving. Who can argue with God? Who can argue with science? Further, they don't have to announce their superiority. It speaks for itself. Religion / science, political correctness. Elijah took it a step further, unfurled with by truth, quote, God of the universe, end quote. How can you beat that? So without getting into a dissertation, it should be clear why the Jews and whites have to do everything in their power to snuff out that idea. Hitler realized what the Jews had done, so he came up with the master race idea, and to underscore it, he would eliminate, quote, God's chosen people, end quote, which, if accomplished, would make him, the Germans, even more superior as they defeated God's best, God's chosen. Farrakhan is dragging or trying to drag the original nation back 1,400 years into ignorance and superstition. Quote, we don't control anything, end quote. Quote, some mystery God forms our children in the womb. We have no control of that affair, end quote. Quote, the mystery God wakes us up in the morning, end quote. Quote, the mystery God determines our lifespan, end quote, etc., etc. Yet he claims that God is a man. So one must conclude that Farad is indeed exceptional and at the same time schizophrenic, as he keeps forming devils who are his declared enemy in the womb. Farad keeps waking them up in the morning, but feels the need to build a will in preparation for the day of battle. Why? Just don't wake them. Farrakhan's job is to undermine Elijah's teachings, confuse and mingle Sunnism. Once he is gone, the damage will be irreparable. Confusion, no sense of direction, confused, disorientated ministers. NOI dismissed / mocked by their association with discredited Scientology. No assets, nothing, and no more, quote, God of the universe stuff, end quote. The KV, in his pretzel-twisted efforts to deny the divinity of the original people, has promoted the most preposterous ideas. They claim that the Earth is the result of millions of stars, perhaps billions, which exploded over billions of years, spewing the fruit of their cores into space. Somehow, all this material coalesced into this area of space containing every possible element / atom in just the right proportions. To get some sense of this ridiculous idea, what if you had a trillion monkeys typing on trillions of typewriters 24/7? Do you think that in all the paper they generated, anything like the Bible would be found? It is more likely that they would produce a perfect Bible just randomly typing on all 4 feet than the earth coming into existence in the way Tavy says. You would have a better chance hitting the lottery every day in every state for the next billion years. For the earth to produce oxygen, it had to be the core of a very large star, superstar. Yet the earth possesses every type of atom possible and the ultimate atom, the atom of life. So the earth had to be the core of a star of unprecedented pressure, unmatched heat. You have to bind oxygen and hydrogen atoms to produce a molecule of water. Oxygen and hydrogen are both fire. So we were fire, as Iblis reveals, and by combining the atom of life with hydrogen and oxygen atoms, we made life as we know it from water. Iblis was not made to witness his own creation because he, the jinn, were / are descendants of the original being, meaning that it took time to convert the atom of life from fire to water. So we were self-created in the core of the earth, lived in the oceans from fire to water, then as cream does eventually rose to the surface. Quote, maker, owner, cream of the planet earth, end quote. That's after making the sun to warm the surface of the earth. From one being, all life was created. The first being was genderless. Then we created gender. Quote, we created its mate of the same kind, end quote. Meaning they both, male, female, are two sides of one thing. All life from plant life to the cavy came from us. The cavy is a speaking beast, yet a beast. An expanding universe tends to tension, the opposite of pressure. Tension pulls slash tears things apart, while pressure pushes slash forges slash fuses things together. The greater the expansion, the greater the tension. The tension was minor to insignificant in the beginning of the expansion cycle. So we separated slash created small things slash attributes from ourselves to relieve the tension. Quote, this satisfaction brings about a change, end quote. Meaning we separate small, simple traits from ourselves, giving them back personification, a sense of self-determination. As the expansion increased, so did the complexity of our creations, until finally at the apex of the expansion, we created slash separated and personified the most complex being ever, the Caucasian, a speaking beast. So the archaeological record is indeed correct, but the interpretation is wrong. The simplest beings didn't evolve. They were just the first to separate from ourselves. The geneticists know the truth but are silent. Evolution is a political tool of oppression. When the earth and heavens were one, all the energy you see in the universe was once the atmosphere of the earth, a superstar with the earth its core. So much energy. Energy is pressure. The pressure was so great, greater than any star can reproduce other than itself. It was the mother of all stars. Under such pressure, the fire slash temperature was unimaginable. The average velocity of the atoms was 24 billion miles per second, which at such velocity slash speeds, they achieved harmonic motion, which means no heat, as there is no collisions, no internal pressure, just the pressure against that which was containing the harmonic motion. In this state, consciousness exists, self-creation. Consciousness is pressure. Thought is pressure. Understanding that, then it took the total pressure of the fully contracted universe to produce the pressure conditions which produce harmonic motion, consciousness, thought. Therefore, the thought of the first being, thought being pressure, was equal to the pressure of the entire universe. The consciousness of the original being is equal to the pressure of the entire universe, meaning he is capable of understanding the entire universe. Quote, God of the universe, end quote. All our brains combined compose the brain of the original being. We each just have backs, but we are still connected, one being. The first law is consequence. Quote, every action has an opposite but equal reaction, end quote. Some call that justice. Some call it balance. Sometimes it's referred to as karma, consequence, or, quote, you reap what you sow, end quote. Consequence slash justice is the basis or the premise on which faith is built. The second law is torque or spin. A spinning object generates torque, which gives it a gyroscopic effect that provides stability/firmness, provides an axis about which the object rotates, which forces the object upright. The third law is currents. In a pressure field, there can be no net pressure, meaning the pressure must be everywhere equal. If there is a pressure differential, then it spontaneously generates a correcting current, a flow of pressure from one point to the other to normalize the pressure differential. The greater the differential, the greater the current. The fourth law is force. The fourth law is mass times acceleration equals force, which means the more mass you have, the slower you will move. The less mass, the faster. Everyone has the same force in a pressure field, which gets back to the first and third laws. The fifth law is the phenomena of harmonic motion. In a pressure field, atoms are moving in a chaotic manner, always colliding with each other, which generates heat and the measure of pressure. However, if the temperature is raised high enough, the atoms will achieve harmonic motion where they are no longer colliding, thus no heat and no internal pressure. The only pressure will be against the surface of that which contains the harmonic motion. Shahada, faith. The first pillar of Islam is the first law of pressure, which is consequence. Faith is built on our sense of justice. We believe that all, quote, injustice, end quote, will be corrected by, quote, God, end quote, which is / who is consequence. That is God's most accurate and profound name, consequence. Quote, every action has an opposite but equal reaction, end quote, is the most fundamental principle in the universe. Everything is built on that single principle. One single principle. One single God. That is God. Mathematics. All mathematics is built on the fundamental concept of consequence. Salah, prayer, the second pillar of Islam, is the second law of pressure, torque / spin. Every object has two possible paths, two possible motions, linear velocity or angular velocity, or a combination of both. One is the motion of the upright, the other the motion of the serpent. If one spins, it will generate torque, which is an axis that is perpendicular to a spin, causing it to move in an upright manner. The more it spins, the more upright it becomes. The more upright, the more firm it becomes, the more steadfast. That which does not spin moves about tumbling, stumbling, wobbling, erratic, unanchored, unstable, all attributes of emotionalism. Reciting of the Quran, and to a lesser extent the book of Psalms, Quran is better, causes one to spin. The more they recite, the greater the spin. That is because the heart is the center of our beings, and recital affirms the heart. The heart controls/regulates our circulatory system, which is a spinning system by definition. So by making slots/recitals, we cause the heart to regulate the circulatory system from erratic to firm and constant. The circulatory system encompasses, controls, and governs our entire body. It is the most important system of the body, regulated by the heart. Zakat, charity, currents. The third pillar of Islam is the third law of pressure, currents. This gets back to the first two laws, which are basically balance. Quote, spend out of what we have given you, end quote. Mathematics is just, and by definition, God is just. Everyone gets the same amount of energy as everyone else does at any given time without exception ever. That is the essence of pillars 1 and 2. So, if you give some of your energy/property to someone else, you have just generated a pressure/energy differential, which will spontaneously generate a positive current of pressure/energy to you to the degree of the differential. Energy is love, good/bad. You have generated good or positive love. On the other hand, you take/steal from someone, you have done the opposite. If you are constantly giving, you can create greater and greater currents such that a situation is created where large amounts of energy/money passes through your hands continuously to others, like a traffic cop regulating flowing traffic energy. It can also be a source of healing as the energy not taken, not hoarded/banked, etc., the body uses for healing. Sawn, fasting, quickening. The fourth pillar of Islam is the fourth law of pressure, quickening. This gets back to the first three laws. Force is defined as mass times acceleration equals force. Mass times acceleration equals force. In a pressure field, everyone has equal force without reservations. If I might take a segue here, everyone has equal will. The issue is how they apply that will. If they use it to control others, they will lose control over themselves. It takes will to control oneself. If you waste it on inconsequential things like sport and play, then you will have less for discipline of self back. What does any of this have to do with fasting? The act of consumption is the act of taking on mass or matter, if you will. The more mass, the less motion. The less mass, the greater the acceleration. Fasting quickens you, quickens your reflexes, quickens your thoughts, your energy levels. The more fast, the greater the quickening. You will sleep less and be more active. Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, harmony. The fifth pillar of Islam is the fifth law of pressure, harmony. When pressure reaches the threshold of maximum collisions, a structural change occurs, which is called harmonic motion, where the components of the pressure field convert from chaotic motion to harmonic motion. Harmonic motion is the components/elements/atoms moving in harmony, not colliding. They are all moving in unison in a circular manner in a rhythmic piece. That is what the Hajj represents. All the believers moving together in unison in a circular manner around a common point with a common mission. No conflict, no rancor. The proper translation of Islam is a religion of harmony. You can have peace. You can have peace with harmony, but no harmony without peace. Anyone who can't explain Islam in mathematical terms don't know Islam. As the messenger said, quote, Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam, end quote. That is a clear and decisive statement. So all those running around with the Quran tied around their necks, illiterate in math, yet profess to know Islam to understand the Quran are liars. Islam is mathematics. The 5 pillars of Islam are mathematics. They were set up as rituals for people who were mathematically/scientifically illiterate. They didn't know what they were doing and why. They were acting out of faith, but the wise would see it instantly. Those are on the elevated places. The wise would see the Quran and the Bible for what they really are, for what they were meant to be, books of mathematics and science. Everyone gets this wrong, which leaves the door open for the Jews to make a case that they are the seed of Abraham. Even the anointed gets it wrong. Adam was not made from black mud, then fashioned into shape, which is the prevailing understanding of the following verses. And surely we created man of sounding clay, of black mud fashioned into shape, end quote. No, he was made from black mud that was already fashioned into shape, the original people. Further, it was from the black mud's/original sperm, blood clot, life germ that they were made from our sperm. A speaking beast raised up from the earth, sounding clay. There are/were 2 Adams. The Adam directly from Yaqub's laboratories and the Adam formed 500 years ago called Britannia. It was this Adam, the last, who was given rule over the planet. The sun never sets on the British Empire. This Adam/Britain, called Magog, the mother of God, was put into a 1,000-year sleep called the medieval or dark ages, from which Eve/America/God was taken from his side. Eve was later separated from Adam. The wound of the rib was closed up. The two gave birth to an evil-lying, murderous Cain, false Israel. That's the Adam and Eve of Genesis. This story is also in ISAM chapter 20. The first Adam was the one from the first day 6,000 years ago, the light that was taken out of the darkness, the white from the black. The forbidden tree is the original people who were transplanted from Africa to the Garden of Eden/America. Adam and Eve were warned not to touch it on penalty of death, but they did. A day is 500 years and night 500 years for a total of 6,000-year period. The universe expands by converting potential space into space, the zero dimension into the second and third dimensions. It's all mathematics. Neutrons are the three-dimensional space that is formed by converting potential space into space. Expansion by definition means you are converting potential space to space. As the universe continues to expand, increase tension, it causes neutrons to spin. When any space/object is subjected to tension and has expanded to its maximum limit, any increase in tension will cause it to spin, since it's reached its expansion limit. A spinning neutron is a proton. Objects/space that spin generate torque. The generated torque of the proton is an electron. The electron is a derivative of the proton. The electron, contrary to Cavy's depictions, are two-dimensional. They are spinning hemisphere currents. In order for them to shift perpendicular to their planes, they must either receive or emit a spinning tension wave called photon. Because protons and neutrons are generated by expanding space, they generate a tension field around them. The tension fields around them are curved, much like what you see when you cast a stone into a lake. Ripples. The curved tension field creates an imbalance in the tension forces within the field such that the tension force furthest away from the proton/neutron is less than the tension force closer. Any proton/neutron within the field will be pulled towards the center of the field because of the tension force differential. This is called gravity, and it only affects protons/neutrons because they displace space. Displaced space forces a tension force differential on either side of that which is displacing it, proton/neutron. Protons, which are hydrogen atoms or hydrogen gas, are ubiquitous. They are the effects of the expanding universe. They are, in effect, the expanding universe. Expansion, by definition, is to turn potential space to space. However, the universe is now contracting, which means neutrons/protons will decay back into potential space, which is matter. Photons are generated by shifting electrons. Stars are formed by coalescing protons. Stars that forge/fuse new atoms from protons and generated neutrons. Then there are the so-called black holes. Black holes are sometimes called singularities because they are supposed to consist of trillions of tons of protons and neutrons fused into the size of an atom. Such entities don't exist naturally. We can simulate superprotons, which means protons the size of a basketball, for instance, that displaces the entire volume of said basketball. Such a proton would have all the power and properties of supposed non-existent black holes. We created such powerful objects to control galaxies. We can't have galaxies just flying around uncontrolled. We have vehicles that can traverse the universe in a blink of an eye, but it would not be possible to use them if the galaxies were unmanaged. You hit anything going at those speeds and it would be an utter disaster. We use the same technology to power our vehicles. We can go as fast as we like with no fuel, just the repulsive power of our proton engines, like magnets. We have no worries of inertia. Our proton engines come in pairs, one above and one below. They are calibrated to mimic the Earth's gravity. They only affect individual protons/neutrons. So no matter how fast you go, there is no net inertia effect. That's our idea of inertial dampeners, just constant acceleration. If one starts out at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, and kept accelerating at that speed, how fast would you be going in an hour? To traverse the universe at those speeds, you need well-established clean lanes free of all clutter. This promise is real and will be realized soon. It wouldn't make sense if you could not traverse that garden in a timely fashion. What do you think we were doing for the last 76 trillion years? We were creating the heavens, making stars, planets, galaxies, trillions and trillions of planets, all inhabitable, beautiful, and waiting for you. It would be worthless if we could not get to them in a timely manner. But then, we were out there. Just look. See the stars? We put them there. If KV looks hard enough, he might see echoes of us from millions of years ago, flying around out there. What you see when you look up at the heavens is millions of years past. You see light that left those stars millions of years ago. So if you look carefully, you might see the light from one or more of our ships traversing the universe millions of years ago. Look careful, because they are so quick, you blink, you miss. Some of you may be gods of planets, some even gods of galaxies. Our seed will be everywhere and without number. We will number in the trillions, quintillions, but the earth will always be the throne of the Supreme Being, the God of all, the God of the universe.